Hello everyone! Today I wanted to talk a little bit about counterplay and why it's important to the longevity of Overwatch and other games as well. For starters, what exactly is counterplay and how is it different than outplaying an opponent? Well, think of it this way. Counterplay is like playing a ranged hit scan like Widowmaker or Ashe against Pharah and winning your duels. Outplaying an opponent refers to pure overall skill in the matchup. That would be like Widow versus Widow or Tracer versus Tracer. You both have the same tools and abilities to work with. However, what if a Zenyatta has to duel against a Tracer? Outplay would happen if the Zenyatta is victorious, but that also means that Zenyatta probably had to work considerably harder for his win in comparison to dueling another Zen player. Do you see where I'm going with this? Counterplay solely exists within character matchups, all technical and positioning aside. At face value, how can a character like Zen or Lucio or Reaper take on a character as strong as Widow? The reason DPS characters are so popular is because they do what is necessary to win games. They are the ones usually securing kills. I know what you're thinking, well what about tank heavy comps and goats? But hear me out for a second. There's this notion going around the community, and not just the Overwatch community, that high skill heroes should be rewarded with greater reward. And while I think this is partially true, I think we also need to consider higher risk for these characters as well. Widow and Hanzo are both perfect examples of this idea. For instance, both Widow and Hanzo have one-shot abilities to the head. Widow is hit scan, and while Hanzo definitely feels like he's hit scan sometimes, he's still a projectile-based hero, but both have very limited weaknesses that aren't always easy to exploit. Here's where I'm headed. Widow can shoot every 0.5 seconds with a 1.25 second charge to one-shot enemies. So how do you counterplay that? It takes approximately 3 seconds for a Zen player to charge up a volley of orbs, and that doesn't include the risk you're putting yourself in trying to peek a corner to land those shots in the first place. And did I mention their projectile? I hear people say, well, don't peek corners, or don't try and contest the Widow, but how does that give me an equal opportunity to fight back? Imagine if Widow's killing charge up time was 4 or 5 seconds, which includes the movement penalty. Wouldn't that give you a little bit of an opportunity to counterplay? This idea is already implemented into the game with McCree's ultimate. You have about 2 to 3 seconds or less to burn him down before you die, but it's not like he clicks his ult and everyone in line of sight dies. Even if you dive characters like Widow or Hanzo, they have movement abilities to escape from a fight and reposition. How many highlights of Overwatch League players popping off on Widow have you seen? Disadvantages start from the character select screen and only promotes an outplaying elitist attitude. The meme just click heads or get good boils down to the idea that the solution to all of your problems is to just have godlike aim, which is simply unrealistic. You can tell a Widow and a Zen facing each other to just click heads, but that meme doesn't work if one of us literally can't just click on someone's hitbox and they drop dead. Yeah, if Zen or Ana had the damage equivalent of a Widow, I'd be a killing machine every match. Hanzo falls into this category as well. What is the risk of just randomly firing arrows until you land one headshot? Isn't that high reward for low risk and low aim? Even characters like Genji have guaranteed low aim required damage in the form of his strike. Look how far away your crosshair can be from a target and still guarantee damage to them. To some degree, I think Hog is a better example of how one-shot abilities should be handled. In very few circumstances can Hog reliably one-shot characters without the use of his hook, which is on a long enough cooldown that you know you have approximately 7 seconds or so to escape or burn him down. But that's the beauty of the situation. Counterplay exists. Brig was the end boss to this idea for so long. How were DPS players supposed to counterplay Brig? They just couldn't, and I don't think I've taken down a Brig as Zen more than a handful of times over the entire time she has been in the game. We can't promote this idea that you always have to outplay your opponents with far more effort than they do. With the recent release of Batiste, Jeff Kaplan even said going forward they want supports to have at least one way to disengage from the fight. And the only character, Cough Cough Zen, that doesn't have a disengage requires constant godlike aim to consistently take down flankers. And I'm not talking about dueling and winning 1 or 2 times against a flanker. I mean being strong enough as a player to win every time. Now my argument isn't that supports should replace DPS, because let's be real, Goats is basically doing that right now, but that they should have equivalent methods to take on a variety of characters. That supports don't have to sweat harder than the person trying to kill them. The fact that a support has to potentially give up healing their team to take a flanker down already puts a disadvantage to that one team. And I said I don't think support should be stronger than DPS, but they should possess some sort of equal playing ground where counterplay exists and outplaying only applies to situations where I'm facing the mirror matchup on the other team. I fell in love with the Paladin support cast of characters because every single one of them possesses either a way to disengage from the fight, defend themselves, or both. When the character design for Batiste launched, I was overwhelmed with excitement because I thought his ability design was going to be similar to Pip's. For those that aren't aware, his design in Paladins includes a burst heal, a disengage, moderate to high damage burst if you can land your projectile shots, and his right click is a ball of flame that momentarily slows down enemies. And that by itself is counterplayable. You aren't stunned when you get hit by it, you simply move a bit slower for a few seconds. We saw a similar introduction of counterplay when Doomfist's uppercut was nerfed so that enemies could actually try and attack back. I feel like this is the direction for support characters that we should be going in. Playing support or a tank shouldn't feel like a chore or overly reliant on teammates to get work done. I think characters like Mercy, who can only disengage, should have higher healing outputs and less damage dealing potential. I get it. Mercy doesn't require as much aim to heal as other supports, but instead of calling Mercy players brain dead or unskilled, ask for a high skill component to her kit that feels impactful. Right now her ult definitely isn't that. And while her movement does require skill, it doesn't directly impact the game in the same way. My main problem with Brig when she launched was simply that her damage plus self-heal plus shielding capability was just too overwhelming to deal with. If they had gutted her damage and brought her shield back a tad, but kept her healing, I think she would have felt more like a support and less like a murder machine that can't die. My main message of this entire video being, counterplay should exist between all characters, and outplaying should be reserved for situations where you have mirror matchup or dealing with 1v2 situations, for example. I hope this sparks some healthy discussion from the community, and here's my daily reminder to you that if you're procrastinating, don't forget to do what you need to do, have a wonderful remainder of your day, and do not forget to drink more water. Dehydration is a real bitch, everyone. Take care.